me. Slow motion for me, moving slow motion for me. Come on. Slow motion for me, slow motion for me, moving slow motion for me.
Robin drove to Ben's office without first calling. After putting things into perspective, she realized that she didn't want to lose an opportunity to make that much money for 8 hours of work, but she had to be smart about it. Ben jumped up quickly when she entered the room. "Hey, Robin, I hear you did a great job last night. Sorry about the mix-up with the times. Here, have a seat." "I can't. I need to leave. I just came to pick up my pay." He reached for a large ledger. "You know, I still haven't replaced the other person." Robin peeked at the check. "That looks like you're about to write that for $125, but I did work 8 hours, and if I'm not mistaken, that should be $148. $148? Robin frowned. Ben smiled. "Sorry, my mistake." He wrote her 2 checks. "So, do you want the shift?" "One until 9 o'clock? "No, midnight until 9. "That's more than 8 hours. "True, but it's regular money." "How many days a week?" "Monday through Friday." "I want $23.50 for each hour over 8 that I work." "Ouch." He smiled at her after a moment. "Prorated on 15-minute intervals?" She thought about that. "You have a deal." Robin held out her hand and Ben shook it. After work at the restaurant, she went straight to Miss Lucille's house. The woman from the night before greeted her when she let herself in. Ben had given her a key. "Hi, Chica. Back again. I guess you liked it since you're back. Are you on this shift permanently?" "I think so." "Hard shift to work." "How people stay awake is beyond me." She gave Robin a brief, knowing look. "Do you have an alarm on your watch or cell phone? If so, I would set it. Oh yeah, and Marissa was complaining that you didn't do the dishes at the end of your shift." Robin winced. "I wasn't aware that we had to cook meals." Jody stopped. "We don't." She put her hands on her hips. "You can always tell that little old lady to go in and make her own breakfast." Robin's face felt hot. "I don't mind. It's just as long as I know. Also, it wouldn't hurt to make up her bed." The woman whisked past Robin. "Night-night, Chica. See you tomorrow." With a relieved sigh that the other lady was gone, Robin went in and checked on Miss Lucille. The small bird-like woman was sleeping peacefully. Things ran much more smoothly now that she knew what to expect. She read until it was time to give Miss Lucille her first dose of medicine, and then afterwards, she nestled down in the armchair. She did take Jody's advice and she set her cell phone for 5:45 a.m. And when it rang, she roused herself from her brief nap and then set the eggs to boil and got the coffee going. Miss Lucille was already awake when Robin walked into the bedroom and she helped her to the restroom. While she peed, Robin turned off the eggs and then set them in the sink to cool. She got Miss Lucille dressed while the older woman repeated the same story about her son the doctor, her grandkids, and the women's group. Robin set up the tray and brought the woman's breakfast as she watched television evangelist. This was going a lot smoother. Robin smiled, stretched, then she went back to the bedroom. Yawning, she began to make the bed before discovering that they badly needed changing. She squinted and looked around. The room was dusty. Did anyone actually come to clean? "Miss Lucille, do you have a cleaning lady?" The old woman gnawed on her toast, eyes glued to the TV. "No." "Who does your laundry? And who dusts and does your shopping?" "My son brings me 1 dozen eggs a week, along with 1 loaf of bread. When the sugar, creamer, and coffee runs out, he buys more. He brings me 7 chicken lean cuisines and 7 meatloaf Marie calendars." Robin retreated to the kitchen and checked the freezer. There were 2 chicken and 2 meatloaf frozen meals left, as well as a tray of frosty ice cubes. She checked the refrigerator for butter or jam. None. She checked the pantry. There were canned goods that were years old and spices that had dust on them. Yikes. Miss Lucille, who cleans? Miss Lucille turned her light gray eyes to Robin. My son is a very busy man. He comes over and does the laundry for me once a month and does the dusting and vacuuming then. Robin hid her doubtful look, but accepted the woman's words. Robin got the dishes washed, and then she was on time giving Miss Lucille her next dosage of medicine. Afterwards, she went up to the bedroom, changed the bedding, and dusted the furniture. Poor old lady probably wouldn't need oxygen if she could breathe past all the dust. Robin then returned to the living room and sat down in the armchair, trying to keep her arms from sticking to the plastic. She tried to watch TV with Miss Lucille, but it, more than anything else, made her sleepy. She thought about making small talk, but the lady seemed very preoccupied with her show, so Robin didn't want to interrupt her. She picked up a book and began reading. What is that? Miss Lucille was trying to see the cover. She reached out her hand for the book. Oh, it's a story about a world where witches and vampires exist alongside of humans. Miss Lucille scowled. That's blasphemy. Huh? Miss Lucille looked at the cover with disgust. It's probably all about sex, vile sex with devils. No, not at all. Robin slipped the book out of the older woman's hands. It's just a story about a nice girl who was born a witch. Miss Lucille snorted. Robin sighed and checked her watch. Just another half an hour. The next day, when Robin went to Miss Lucille's house, she carried a bag containing butter substitute and no sugar added jam. She spread butter and jam onto her morning toast and set the tray along with the 2 soft-boiled eggs and coffee with sugar and cream in front of her. And then Robin hurried out of the room. When she returned, every bit of the toast had been eaten. Robin picked up the tray to carry into the kitchen to wash, and Miss Lucille's eyes moved from the television screen to stare at the young woman. Did my son bring that butter and jam? Robin paused. I guess. Robin fell into her routine easily, despite the fact that she now had to eke out her sleep time during the part of the day when neighbors ran their vacuum cleaners and babies cried for breakfast and toddlers watched the same episode of SpongeBob SquarePants until she thought she'd jam a pencil into her ears if she had to hear that damn song one more time.
It's all in the eyes, you and me. Words just describe all the things that you be. What is deep is deeper than steep. So lonely.
She went to Pinnacle each day to pick up her wages, and when her bank account actually showed an amount that contained 2 zeros instead of 1, Robin did a happy dance.
Can't hold hearts and feel righteously. Whatever it is, I know that it's real. Long as you know, no complaints, you're all that I feel. Sister, soul, you must be my soul sister, soul sister, soul. You must be my soul.
Nothing could put a damper on her mood except one person, Mama. The 2 women met for church each Sunday. It was a routine that was solidified after Daddy's death. Mama wouldn't have to keep hinting that she didn't come by enough, and Robin was undoubtedly saving her immortal soul each Sunday, so it was killing 2 birds with 1 stone. After the service, they went to brunch. Mama always treated, so she always chose the location. I'm planning a cruise to Jamaica this winter. I can use a vacation. Betty spoke. That sounds like fun, Mom. You haven't had a vacation in years. Well, I want you to come with me. Robin looked up in surprise. I want to make it for 7 days. I'll pay. I just want us to have some time together. Her mother smiled nervously. Robin's food stayed frozen in her mouth. She didn't want to be alone with her mom for 7 days. Take off work for 7 days? Well, it will be a month from now. If you ask now, then I'm sure they will be able to accommodate you. Well, I just picked up a second part time job. She lied about it being part time and about it being just. Oh? Yes, I started working at a home health care service, night shifts, but they are awfully short staffed. Home health care? She gave Robin a confused look. You want to be a nurse? No, no, not at all. All I do is monitor people in their homes. Betty sucked in a loud breath. Are you telling me that you are going to people's homes taking care of them? Robin gave her a surprised look. Well, I guess. Jesus, Robin. It wasn't bad enough that you work in a low paying fast food restaurant, but now you want to wipe the asses of old white people, clean their houses, give them their medicine? Everyone in the restaurant turned to look at them, mostly white people, and Robin wanted to sink in her seat. Mom, please, she begged, hoping she'd calm down. She could already feel the familiar pounding of her heart in her chest, and the way that the sweat was beading on her forehead was an indication that she was going to probably have a nervous attack, and she didn't want to do that, not in front of Mama and not in front of these strangers. Oh, Robin, I give up. Betty stood and tossed several bills onto the table. If you want your life to amount to nothing, then fine. Hot, angry tears sprouted in Robin's eyes. She was shaking as she stood and followed her mother out of the restaurant. How dare she? How dare she judge her? How dare she say that her life amounted to nothing? I give up. Betty looked at Robin somewhat surprised. The hot tears made her colorful eyes big. I wouldn't want to spend 7 days with you, okay? The idea of it makes me sick, Mom. I'd rather spend 7 days wiping Miss Lucille's ass than in Jamaica with you. Robin got into her car and drove off, leaving her mother staring after her. Robin sat slouched in her chair. Nothing felt right anymore. She was just a simple person that wanted a simple life of no complications. So how is it that she had killed the one relationship that meant anything to her? It had been 2 weeks since she had spoken to her mother. She hadn't even gone to church. Her stomach was in knots, and she was constantly in the bathroom with irritable bowel. She picked up her cell phone before she could think of an excuse not to, and dialed the familiar number. Her mother picked up on the second ring, and Robin knew that she had checked the caller ID. I'm sorry, Mom. There was a long pause. I should have never yelled at you like that, Robin. I know that I'm a disappointment to you. I know I've made you think that. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sorry that I'm not outgoing, but you are perfect the way you are. Robin swiped away her tears. No, I'm not, she thought to herself. I'm afraid of my very shadow. I'm lonely. I'm sad all the time, and my life seems pointless. She thought these things but didn't dare to say them. Admitting them to herself was hard enough. Robin, her mother said softly, I don't want you to ever struggle, and I want you to be happy. You are my only family. An only child, Betty Medina's mother had passed away long ago, and she had never known her father. No one else that she was kin to meant anything to her. There was no one but Robin. You are no disappointment to me. I just want more for you. I just want you to have a life not filled with struggles, and baby, I am in a position where I can help you in a way that my mama could never help me. Money had been tight for her and her mother, so there was no question of her mom paying for college. If she wanted it, she would have to pay for it herself. And pay for it herself she did, by working very hard. She had always sworn to herself that she would give her daughter what her mother couldn't. I want to find my own life, Mom, like you did. You're pushing, and it doesn't push me towards what you want, but away from you. There, she had finally said it. She held her breath and heard her mother swallow back her own tears. I know. And then the two talked, really talked, for the first time since Daddy's death, and maybe for the first time ever. When Robin hung up the phone an hour later, she wasn't sure if her mother would change, but she already knew that she couldn't continue a relationship with her mother where she had to hold everything in. She breathed a sigh of relief.
Going fast to have found that all's now in the past. To have to take what you can get sure can make a heart upset. So I'll be invisible. Invisible. Invisible.
Robin had been Miss Lucille's aide for 3 weeks when she was finally given a compliment. You have such pretty eyes. What's your name again? Oh, my name is Robin. Thank you. My son will be coming over today. Can you pick me out something nice to wear? Sure. Would you like pants or a dress? Miss Lucille selected a pretty purple dress. There was dust on the shoulders, so Robin dusted it off. I have a doctor's appointment today. Bentley will probably take me to lunch after. We go to the Brown Derby. I usually have the chopped steak and baked potato. They use fresh mushrooms, you know. Not all restaurants do, even those expensive steak places. Robin listened to her as she talked about her son, her grandchildren, and the ladies from the women's group. She pretended that she hadn't already heard this story 30 times and commented in all of the right places. When Marissa arrived to replace her, she called over her shoulder, "Bye, Miss Lucille. See you tomorrow and have a pleasant visit with your son." Marissa frowned. Is that why you put her in that party dress? Well, she wanted to wear it when her son takes her out to lunch. Her son doesn't take her out. He's a busy doctor. Marissa's voice wasn't low, and Robin looked over at Miss Lucille to see if she had heard. He drops off her food and pays whoever is on duty to do some cleaning and laundry, and then he leaves. Well, who is going to take her to the doctor? Nobody. The doctor comes here if ever. Look, these old people are delusional. They think all kinds of things because their reality sucks for them. Just play along, okay? Robin nodded her head and left. She felt gullible, but saddened. Robin, I want to know if you would take on a new client ASAP while Miss Babs is in the hospital. Robin was on her way to work for her first job. She had been informed only a few hours before that Miss Lucille had been admitted to the hospital with a case of pneumonia and was still reeling from that news. She wanted to visit her, but her need for sleep had prevailed. And now Ben was calling, asking her to make a decision on replacing her with someone else. Over the course of the last 2 months, Robin had grown more than fond of the older woman. Initially, she had looked at the job as just a means to bring in more money, but seeing the other woman's life in a series of caregivers and evangelist shows had caused Robin to put forth more effort. Though it wasn't like her to reach out, she did with Miss Babs. Ben, I want to go back to Miss Lucille. It's just temporary, he assured her. So, are you interested? She had clicked very well with Miss Lucille. She wasn't sure if she would be able to do that with just anyone. Who is the client? A young man with cerebral palsy needs an aide. The job is a little different. You'll need to transport him to and from school. You will need to do some light lifting, and other than that, he is very self-sufficient and can do most everything else himself. Transportation? You mean use my own car because we'll reimburse you for your mileage? She had become smarter in her dealings with Pinnacle. And wear and tear? Ben chuckled. You are a savvy businesswoman. I'll throw in an extra $50 per shift to cover both wear and tear and mileage. Do you have a deal? God. She knew there was something he wasn't telling her. Deal, she said reluctantly. Okay, got something to write with? I'll give you his address. Be there at 7 a.m. in order to get him to class by 8 a.m. Got it? Got it. And when does the shift end? As soon as you get him back from school. Okay. Sounded a bit vague, but okay. Okay. Miss Medina, I think we have a deal. Please start in the morning. The next morning, when Robin woke up, she had to admit that it was nice sleeping through the night again. Robin dressed in jeans and a sweatshirt, keeping in mind that she would have to do some light lifting today. It would probably be nice taking some kid to school. Maybe she could get caught up on her grocery shopping. She wondered if he had a pager. She pulled into the parking lot of a nice condo and got out of her car. It was just a little before 7 as she hurried up the walkway and rang the doorbell. A man in a wheelchair opened the door, and the smile she had plastered on her face dropped. Man, not kid. He stared at her, his head bobbing a bit on his neck. Unruly red hair flopped into his eyes that were cold and unfriendly as they appraised her. Thanks for fitting me into your busy schedule. His voice was so cold. His voice was as cold as his eyes, slurring enough that she had to strain to understand him. His mouth twisted and he gulped in a breath. So happy that you could make it, even if you're 24 hours late, and I had to miss a day of classes. He rolled his chair back into the apartment in stiff, angry movements, and Robin stepped inside uncertainly. I'm not sure if I understand you. I just got the call on this job last night. Well, Pinnacle is so fucked up. He wheeled around, coming toward her. She almost took a step back. His pale skin was mottled red from anger and was covered in millions of freckles. They got paid a week ago, promising that it would be no problem getting me an aide. Then you cancel at the last minute, leaving me in a lurch. The last slurred words were shouted in a spray of spit. Robin was not one to easily anger, but his rudeness pushed her into that direction. How dared this asshole shout and spit all over her? Angrily, she wiped his spit spray from the back of her hand. Well, first of all, I had nothing to do with the deal you had with Pinnacle. Like I told you, I accepted a job last night. She began to shake with anger, but her voice stayed steady. It couldn't have been me to cancel out because before that I was watching a little old lady that just went into the hospital with pneumonia. So don't you yell at me. She put her fists on her hips as the man in the wheelchair quieted. He watched her silently. I'm sorry then. I thought it was you. Now that his anger was no longer directed at her, his head didn't flop and lurch around as much, and his voice became clear and quite easy to understand. His breathing slowed as he continued watching her. What's your name?